एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल द सोलफुल डायरी। आज के वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे खुशवंत सिंह और उनकी नॉवल ट्रेन टू पाकिस्तान के बारे में। बट हम नॉवल को डिस्कस करने से पहले खुशवंत सिंह की लाइफ के बारे में जान लेते हैं कुछ इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ें। चलिए खुशवंत सिंह की लाइफ के बारे में जान लेते हैं। खुशवंत सिंह वॉज बोर्न ऑन 2nd February 1959, Hadali, Kushab, India. Now it is part of Pakistan. He died on 20th March 2014 in New Delhi. Was one of the best known writers of India. He wrote novels such as Train to Pakistan and I Shall Not Hear the Nightingale, several essays and short stories, and a definitive history of Sikhism in 2 volumes. Kushwant Singh won the Padma Bhushan, one of India's highest civilian awards, and was a member of the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament, between 1980 and 1986. He was the editor of prestigious journals and newspapers such as the Illustrated Weekly of India, the National Herald, and the Hindustan Times. He was born into the most well-to-do family of Hadali, a small village in the Punjab province of what is now Pakistan. He was the second son of accomplished builder Sobha Singh and his wife Viran Bai. In those days, it was not popular practice to record the date of and time of births, and Sobha Singh chose 2nd February 1915 as his son's birth date while enrolling in a school. When he attended modern school, the first co-educational institution in Delhi, Singh changed his name from Kushal to Kushwant to resemble that of his brother Bhagwant. He did not so to escape the derisive chants of bullies at school. It was at modern school that he met Kaval Malik, whom he would marry some 20 years later in Delhi. Singh's performance in academic subjects was superb except in English and geography. He was an incorrigible prankster, so much so that an incident involving him and his brother, they presented a cobra to their chemistry teacher only for it to attempt to attack came to be recorded in his short story, The Mark of Vishnu. At school, he came to love English and Urdu poetry. His English teacher would read aloud the works of Thomas Hardy, Oscar Wilde, Alfred Tennyson, and Shakespeare to his class. His tutor in Urdu, Maulvi Shaifuddin Nair, introduced Singh to his poetry of Mirza Ghalib and Akbar Allahabadi. After matriculating in 1930, Singh attended St. Stephen's College, Delhi, where he took the intermediate art exam in 1932. He then enrolled in Government College, Lahore, now in Pakistan, for his bachelor's degree. Since he was garrulous and argumentative, his parents decided on a career in law for him. During his college years, his interest in the arts, particularly painting and playing the sitar, was renewed. He responded to this call by enrolling in Kala Bhavan, the Center for the Arts at Vishwa Bharati University, West Bengal State. Illness curtailed his stay at the university, and soon he was back at college in Lahore. After receiving a bachelor's degree in 1934, Singh studied for an LLB at King's College, University of London. Then he was reunited with his former classmate Kaval Malik, who had moved to London to complete a course in Montessori teaching. The two were married in 1939 and later became parents to Rahul Singh and Mala Singh. Singh began his career in law as an apprentice to his father's legal aid, and he was soon appointed to the panels of defense lawyers of the Lahore High Court and the Advocate General. His experiences in Lahore were deeply influenced by India's independence movement and the socio-political environment of pre-partition India. His role as a defense lawyer in two murder cases, one in Abbottabad involving two Hindu families and one in Gujranwala, where a British nurse was robbed and killed on a train, highlighted his involvement in the rising unrest of his time. A few days before India's independence, Singh was forced to flee Lahore with his family in the wake of rampant communal kills. In fact, he narrowly escaped death while traveling. Shortly after India gained independence in 1947, Singh was appointed Information Officer of the Government of India in Toronto. In 1948, he was promoted to press attaché and public relations officer for the High Commission of India in the United Kingdom. In 1951, he became a member of the Indian delegation to the UNESCO Sixth General Conference in Paris, where he contributed to discussions on education, science, and culture. In the same year, he joined All India Radio as a producer of English language program alongside acclaimed Bengali author Niraj C. Chaudhary. The Planning Commission of India selected Singh as the editor of Yojana, a weekly journal that would publish the government's 5-year plans. His work on Yojana took him on journeys across India as he noted the building of dams, the establishment of community programs, and collected details of people's life. His debut piece covered the trial of Raman Raghav, a man charged with the murder of about 40 people in Bombay in the 1960s. Singh did a thorough sweep of the case, included images of the accused at court. The magazine outdid its contemporaries and its circulation began to climb. With an issue of India-Pakistan War of Nine, the journal achieved a whopping circulation of 4,10,000 copies in contrast to a circulation of 80,000 when Singh joined the nine. His novel "Train to Pakistan" is based on Singh's traumatic experiences of communal violence in Lahore, where he witnessed killing, woke up to murderous chants of miscreants, and had his house seized by violent mobs on the eve of partition of India. According to the writer Iyengar, K.R. Iyengar, "Train to Pakistan" projects with pitiless precision a picture of the bestial horrors of the Indo-Pakistan border region during the terror-haunted days of August 9. The novel received the Grove Press India Fiction Prize in 1957. A film adaptation of Train to Pakistan, directed by Pamela Brooks, was released in 1998. चलिए अब ट्रेन टू पाकिस्तान की स्टोरी डिस्कस करते हैं. This is a story of religious persecution and aftermath of displacement. During the partition of India in 1947, Hindus and Sikhs were made to move to India, and Muslims were forced into Pakistan. Regardless of family history, some families were displaced after many generations of living in one place or the other. As the refugees flee, they are exposed to constant violence, which often crops up when Hindus and Muslims are in close proximity. Little by little, death and murder become the normal for these refugees. Muslims are deported on trains to Pakistan and Hindus on trains to India, nearly 10 million in total. But within the weeks, Mus- uh, but within weeks, almost a million are already dead. The trains run continually, and people call them ghost trains. In this frenzy of chaos and violence is Manu Majra, one of the last remaining peaceful villages of the frontier. Manu Majra diverse, made up of Hindu Muslims but also Sikhs and Christian sympathizers. They depend on each other and live in harmony. Train to Pakistan begins with the murders of Lala Ramlal, the Manu Majra moneylender, and one of the few Hindus in the community. A dacoit named Mali and his gang of robbers are the ones who killed Lala Ramlal, but the inept police who oversee Manu Majra and the surrounding villages falsely imprison two men, Chagat Jugga Singh and Iqbal Singh, for the crime. The town Badmash Jugga is a large young man who has a bad reputation but a good heart. He is the lover of Nooran, the daughter of the village imam, and a bitter enemy of Malli. Iqbal Singh is a social worker from Delhi who comes to Manu Majra in hopes of inspiring the locals to take political action in the new India, but he instead gets caught up in the confusion and violence of the frontier. The night of the Lala Ramlal's murder, Jugga was having a tryst with Nooran, and Iqbal hadn't yet arrived in Manumajra. Still, the head constable arrests them, much to the charge of his superiors. The sub-inspector and the magistrate, Hukum Chand, a practical if slightly corrupt man Hukum Chand instructs the sub-inspector to keep Jugga and Iqbal in custody, but to continue looking for the true killers. One day, a ghost train from Pakistan arrives in Manu Majra. The villagers don't know the train is full of dead Hindus and Sikhs until the police and military burn the bodies. The outside world is finally pressing in and no one knows what to do. The arrival of the ghost train leaves Hukum Chand shaken as well, and he must cling to Hasina, a young Muslim prostitute. The sub-inspector arranged for him in order to fall asleep. When he wakes up the next morning, the sub-inspector tells him Jugga gave him the names of the dacoits who killed Lala Ramlal. The magistrate orders the arrest of Mali and his gang, but continues to keep Jugga and Iqbal in prison. He also tells the sub-inspector to contract the Muslim refugee camp and arrange for the evacuation of the Manu Majra Muslims. Mali and his gang are hauled in, but as a part of the Hukum Chand's plan to convince Manu Majra to evacuate its Muslim villagers, they are soon released. They are taken to the Sikh temple in the village and stand by as the head constable implicates Iqbal and a group of Muslim dacoits in Lala Ram Lal's murder. After sending these rebels through the town, the head constable finishes by announcing that all Muslims in Manu Majra will be taken to a refugee camp. These announcements, coupled with the arrival of ghost trains, split Manu Majra in half. Muslim and Sikhs begin to look at one another suspiciously. A group of Manu Majrans meet at the temple to discuss the recent events. One young man is infuriated and bitter towards his Muslim neighbors until someone suggests that Sikh refugees from Pakistan may come to their village and harm their Muslims. The man's loyalty to his neighbors overpowers his own religious biases, and he vows to defend his neighbors. Imam Baksh and the two other Muslims join the group at the temple, and everyone discusses together what they should do. After they go back and forth, it is decided that the Muslims will go to the camp for now. Imam Baksh leaves in tears to tell the other Muslims to pack up their property. When her father tells her they must leave, Nooran runs to Jugga's house, but he is still in jail. She talks to Jugga's mother and reveals that she is pregnant with Jugga's baby. Jugga's mother calms her down and convinces her that Jugga will find her wherever she is. The next morning, the convoy from the refugee camp arrives, but it can only take a limited amount of. It's also revealed that the Manu Majrans aren't staying at the camp indefinitely but will be deported to Pakistan. Panic ensues as everyone wonders what will happen to the Muslims' property. The commanding officer doesn't care and gives the Muslim only 10 minutes to grab what they carry and say their goodbyes. Mali is left in charge of the property, and once the convoy is out of sight, his band of dacoits and the Sikh refugees from Pakistan raid and loot it. Later that day, sutlej begins to rise and the focus of the village shifts to the dangers that present. The Lambardar arranges a night watch to monitor the river in case of flooding. As the men stand watch, they hear a train arrive at the Manu Majra train station. No one gets out. Meanwhile, on the river, dead livestock, thatch, and clothing come floating down. When morning breaks, the men can clearly see the bodies of murdered men, women, and children bobbing in the water. It's clear another massacre happened upstream. The men hurriedly return to the village to report the activity at the river, but find everyone's eyes glued to the train station. The train that arrived in another ghost train, and this time the bodies are being disposed of in a mass grave. At night, the atmosphere in Manu Majras is grim. All of the remaining villagers are gathered at the Gurudwara because none of them wants to be alone. After meeting the Sikh priest ends his prayer, a group of militant Sikhs enter the temple. They intimidate some of the Manu Majrans into helping them massacre a train of Muslims headed to Pakistan. The train is coming from the refugee camp, which means Manu Majra's Muslim will be on it. Despite their sorrow, the day before, no one from Manu Majra, besides Meet Singh and the Lambadar, speaks up and rejects the plan. Instead, several villagers along the Sikh refugees and Malli's gang join the plot. The Lambadar goes to the police station at Chundangarh and tells the sub-inspector of the planned attack. Hukum Chand is flippant and tells the sub-inspector to let the Sikhs kill the Muslims as long as the police aren't implicated, until the sub-inspector tells him that Hasina will also be on the train. At this news, Hukum Chand completely switches his position and comes up with a plan to save the train. He orders the release of Jugga and Iqbal, hoping that they will somehow save the Muslims. As the sub-inspector released the two men, he tells them that Manu Majra Muslims were evacuated and that things in the village are very different. When Jugga and Iqbal reach Manu Majra, Jugga disappears disappears to look for Nooran, hoping that she has waited for him. Iqbal returns to the Gurudwara where Meet Singh greets him and tells him of the planned attack. Iqbal is appalled but ultimately decides to do nothing. Because no one would know of his sacrifice, he falls asleep drinking whiskey as Chukka comes to the temple seeking a prayer. Meet Singh reluctantly agrees to pray over him but doesn't explain what the prayer means. When Jugga asks, Chukka thanks the priest anyways and asks him to say goodbye to Iqbal for him. At the rest house, Hukum Chand remembers people he knows who suffered because of the partition and wishes that Hasina had stayed with him instead of going to her town. As the train approaches Manu Majra, he begins to cry and pray. At the bridge, the mob is in place. As they hear the train and watch it approach, they don't notice a big man climbing the bridge until he reaches the top. The man pulls out a knife and begins to hack on the rope intent to kill Muslims sitting on top of. The mob begins to shoot the man, but he pauses. Just as the train reaches the bridge, the bullets cause the man to fall, but the rope breaks with him. The train rolls over him and continues unscathed on the way to Pakistan. Characters Lala Ramlal. Ramlal is a money lender of Manu Majra and his family is the town's only Hindu family. At the beginning of the novel, Mali and a pack of dacoits murder him and attempt to frame Jugga for the murder. Mali, a young dacoit who is the leader of a gang from another village, he and Jugga hate one another and he attempts to frame Jugga for the murder of Lala Ramlal. At the end of the novel, he is left in charge of the property of Manu Majra's Muslim population. Jugga Jagat Singh. Jagat Singh, nicknamed Jugga, is the main protagonist of Train to Pakistan, a young strapping dacoit with a good heart. He is the resident bad boy of Manu Majra. By the end of the novel, he redeems himself and saves the lives of Manu Majra's Muslim population. Nooran. Nooran is the daughter of Manu Majra's Muslim weaver, who is also the mullah of Manu Majra's mosques. She and Jugga often have tries together, and by the end, she's pregnant with his child. Jugat Singh's mother. Jugga's no nonsense, long suffering mother disapproves of her son's reckless ways but can't do much about it. She's the only one that knows Nooran is pregnant with Jugga's child. Alam Singh. Alam is Jugga's deceased father. He was an infamous dacoit and was hanged 2 years before for murder. His reputation impacted that of his son, Iqbal Singh. Iqbal is an educated man from Delhi sent to inform the people of Manu Majra of various petitions for government reform. Instead, he gets hauled into jail alongside Jugga for Ramlal's murder and accused of being a member of Muslim League. Bhai Meet Singh. Meet Singh is a priest and a guardian of Sikh temple in Manu Majra. At the end of the novel, when the band of Sikh extremists come to Manu Majra and gather volunteers to murder a train of Muslims en route to Pakistan. He is the only one of dissent. Banta Singh. Banta Singh is the Lamberder, local headman in Manu Majra. He collects taxes for the state and thus is considered a local authority. At the end of the novel, he informs the police in Chundan Nagar about the plan to murder Muslims on the train to Pakistan. Hukum Chand. Hukum Chand is the magistrate and deputy commissioner of Manu Majra and the surrounding district. Morally questionable, he struggles with many of his decisions throughout the novel. In the end, he attempts to avoid a massacre of the Muslims in his district and release Jugga and Iqbal so they can stop the train massacre. The head constable. The police officers who arrest Jugga and Iqbal, he is the lackey of Hukum Chand and the sub-inspector. The sub-inspector, Inspector Sahib, a corrupt official who imprisons Jugga and Iqbal, although he knows that they didn't murder Lala Ramlal, he starts the rumor that Iqbal is a member of the Muslim League. In attempt to further discredit him, he also threatens Jugga with torture so that Jugga will reveal the entities of Lala Ram Lal's murders. Imam Baksh is Nooran's father and the Imam and Mullah of Manu Majra's mosque. Blind, he is unaware of Nooran's relationship with Jugga. Hasina Begum is a young Muslim prostitute who Hukum Chand solace. Prem Singh, a colleague of Hukum Chand who tries to curry favor with groups of Sundari, the daughter of Hukum Chand's orderly. 4 days after she and her husband Mansa Ram were married, a mob rapes her on her way to Gujranwala. Mansa Ram, Sundari's husband, on their way to Gujranwala, a Muslim mob attacks their bus. The mob rapes his wife and cuts his penis off. Sundar Singh, a Sikh war hero with a row of medals for victorious battles in Burma, Eritrea, and Italy, he shoots his children and wife when they are stuck for several days on an overpacked train to India with no provisions. He doesn't have the nerve to kill himself and eventually makes it to India safely. The leader of the mob, a young man who comes to Manu Majra from a surrounding village, he incites the Sikhs of Manu Majra to turn on their Muslim neighbors and devises the plot to murder the train of Muslims bound to Pakistan. Themes: The primary theme of Kushwant Singh's train to Pakistan is the devastating impact of the India-Pakistan partition, portraying the violence, religious hatred, and chaos it unleashed on ordinary people. Other important themes include the loss of innocence, the destruction of community and peaceful coexistence, and the capacity for individual sacrifice and humanity to overcome division, exemplified by the protagonist Jugat Singh. The devastation of partition, violence, and division. The novel vividly illustrates the brutality and senselessness of the communal violence that swept through the subcontinent in 1947, driven by religious differences and political exploitation. Disruption of communities. Singh depicts the disintegration of peaceful coexistence in the village of Manu Majra and religious tensions escalate, showing how long-standing neighborly relationships devolved into hatred and fear. Uprooting and displacement. The book captures the trauma of millions who were forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees in an unfamiliar land and leaving behind their lives and livelihood. Humanity amidst chaos, loss of innocence. The symbol of the train to Pakistan itself signifies a journey into the unknown, representing the loss of innocence and the destruction of the past for those caught in the upheaval. Individual sacrifice. Despite the pervasive hatred, characters like Jugat Singh demonstrate that love, humanity, and sacrifice can still emerge. His ultimate act of selflessness in saving the Muslim villagers highlight the power of individual to rise above sectarian violence even when established authorities have failed. Moral corruption versus humanity. The novel contrasts the corruptible power of the government and religious figures with the raw, inherent goodness of individuals like Jugat Singh, who chooses to act for the well being of others. Motives. Key motives in Kushwant Singh's train to Pakistan include the train itself in symbolizing hope and normalcy at first, and then the horrors of the partition's violence and massacre. The river representing the unchanging flow of life and endless chaos and a potential bridge between communities. Kalyug, the Kali Yuga or Dark Age, which signifies the descent into inhumanity, brutality, and moral decay that grips society, and Manu Majra, the small village that serves as a microcosm of the wider conflict, where the innocence of everyday life is starkly contrasted with the horrors of religious violence strain. Hope and normalcy. At the beginning of the novel, train as a symbol of routine life and connection with the villagers' lives dictated by a railway schedule, violence and fear. As the partition violence escalates, train transforms into symbol of dread and massacres, carrying the dead, refugees, and unseen horrors of the era. The ghost train. The arrival of the first ghost train filled with corpses, marks a pivotal moment where the scale of violence and despair becomes undeniable. The river. Life and continuity. The river that flows by Manu Majra symbolizes life, providing water for the villagers and representing a force of nature that continues despite the human turmoil. Connection and boundary. It acts as a boundary between different communities and for some offers a sense of calm and path towards or away from the conflict. Kalyug, the Kali Yug, moral decay. This ancient concept of dark age or Kali Yuga is the central motive depicting society descent into barbarism, irrational hatred, and inhumanity. In Humanity, the narrative highlights how during Kali Yuga people lose their moral compass, engaging in acts of extreme violence, torture, and rape against one another based on religious differences. Manu Majra, microcosm of the conflict. The fictional village is a microcosm of the larger partition conflict, a place that is initially peaceful but becomes engulfed by the surrounding chaos, innocence, and brutality. Manu Majra serves as a place where the simple everyday lives of the villagers are starkly contrasted with the brutal reality of communal violence, showcasing both good and evil characteristics. Symbols. In Kushwant Singh's train to Pakistan, the train initially symbolizes order and connection but transforms into a symbol of destruction, communal violence, and the horror of partition, carrying the dead and embodying the mass migration and suffering during that historical event. Other symbols in the novel include the railway bridge, representing both the persistent connection and the impending danger between India and Pakistan, and bangles, which evolved from symbolizing womanhood to representing sexual violence and loss of innocence. The train. Initial symbolism. The train's arrival at the Mano Majra station initially represents order and movement. Transformation. It quickly becomes a symbol of death, violence, and the forced movement of people during partition. Ghost train. It is described as a ghost train that brings death and suffering, carrying dead bodies as an omen of the violence to come. Dehumanization. It represents the horrifying dehumanizing process of change during the historical period. Railway bridge. This structure connects the village of Manu Majra to a wider world but also becomes a site for planned violence, symbolizing the fragile connection between India and Pakistan and the threat of destruction. Bangles. Thrown into a yard at the start of the novel, the bangle begins as a symbol of womanhood. However, they become a motif representing sexual violence, a reflection of the growing tension and the corruption of innocence within the village. The river. Initially a symbol of life, the river symbols into a symbol of death and destruction as the bodies of massacre victims begin to wash ashore, mirroring the corruption of the village's harmony due to outside conflict. थैंक यू। आई होप आज की वीडियो आपको पसंद है। कैसी लगी हमें कमेंट करके बताएं, और अगर कोई डाउट्स या सजेशंस है तो वो भी आप कमेंट सेक्शन में ड्रॉप कर सकते हैं। अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माई चैनल। मिलते हैं कल एक और इन्फॉर्मेटिव वीडियो के साथ शाम 4 बजे। टिल देन कीप वॉचिंग एंड कीप सपोर्टिंग द सोलफुल डायरी। थैंक यू।